So. So top that, Tomlin.
I know. I know. That was stunning.
Wow.
Absolutely beautiful. It is so wonderful to be here with you, and it's so wonderful to be here with my friend and colleague. So many memories, so much appreciation, so much that we accomplished here that we still feel really, really good about. We've sort of divided the first service. I mean, the overall theme is, can ministers change, and how does that look, and how does that work? And we started, at 9 o'clock, we focused mostly on ministry. And as Beverly said, you can get the CD if you'd like. It was an interesting discussion, I think. And the bottom line is that both of us are in much smaller ministries than we were here. And there is a perfection in whatever number has come together, you know? 2 or more are gathered, and he meant it literally. I have done Spirit Expressing on a Sunday and had 2 people show up. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect in that moment. So our hope for you is that you keep that in mind as you search for somebody who will be your next minister. Somebody who's focused on the people who are in the seats, not on the empty seats that we need to get people for. Spiritual community happens when you focus on who's here and the perfection of that number. And I just see your next minister being very blessed to have you as a congregation, and a blessing to you. So this time we want to talk about truth itself, its very truth. We've both been through a lot since we left here. And do you think your understanding of truth has changed?
The emphasis has changed. So let me start, because you're going to build on what I say, okay?
If you say so, Ellen.
You are. Well, I mean, we did.
She was and will always be the senior minister.
Okay. We wanted to talk about our own spiritual journeys, not because you care so much, but because you have your own spiritual journeys, and they're always changing. I mean, growth is the goal. So we were talking about how have our beliefs changed since we were here. I left at the end of 2007, and you left in 2008?
9.
9?
No, 8. Yes, you're right. I was still in Dallas.
This is the first time I've been invited back. But my feelings aren't hurt. And I'll be back in October to talk about Hell in the Hallway. A lot of you are in it. So let me put what I've learned, or how my emphasis has changed, in terms of the 5 principles, which is the book that's already out. When I was here, I was very focused on principle 3, which is your thoughts have the power to create. You're the creator of your experience. And I said it over and over, and probably pounded on the pulpit. And I still believe that, probably even more so, that as souls, we come here to create an experience. I don't know how specific we are before we get here. I think now a lot more of it happens at a soul level, although we can participate from our human personalities. So I was there for years, and then I started to move back into principle 2, which is we are divine. And I talked a lot in Wimberley, where I am now, about, okay, we're divine, we're made in the image of God, we have the Christ within, we say it different ways. But how does that make a difference in today? How do I get through the week as a divine person? I did a whole series called Unapologetic Divinity, about how divine consciousness shows up at work, with your family, with your friends. And so I worked on that for a couple of years. And more recently, I'm going through principles backwards. I've moved into principle 1, which is God is all there is. There is only one presence and one power in the universe. And just remembering that, no matter what happens, is a life's spiritual journey. And I think you're kind of in the same place.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Just as I listen to you, I think what has become so for me is that there aren't really 5 principles.
There have to be. I wrote that book.
I know you. You could come out with a new edition. But the first principle enfolds all the others.
Yes.
There is the first principle, and then there are ways of using it, expressing it, and understanding it. But the truth is that God is everything.
Yeah.
That which we call divine. I try not to use the word God so much because it has so many different connotations to different people. But the divine, the energy of the infinite, of which we are completely a part. And that's the big shift for me, I think, is that both here and at the ministries that preceded my being here in Chicago and Oregon, the focus was on sort of the process and the work that had to be done to become one with our spiritual truth. And I've come to realize that there is no work to be done.
Yeah.
There is no work to be done to get anywhere. You are the divine. Your ego mind is as divine as anything within you. It is you. It's there for you to use. What's important is that we know who we are. We know that power within it. We know that we can go to that mountaintop that I mentioned in meditation. And it's always there, and it will always show us spiritual light. And it will always allow us to fearlessly go in and deal with whatever ego mind wants to deal with. I mean, the ego mind has a lot of fear, and it's useful. It's very helpful to know that, that's a lion coming towards you, and you probably should move. I mean, yes, it's all God and it's all good, but get out of the way of the lion, So what I focus on, to the point where I think I'm in training to be a cranky old man, is
I didn't say a word.
Is the precision of the words we use.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The precision of the words. We know the truth about ourselves. You wouldn't be here if within you, you didn't know your own divinity, because that's what brought you here. But we sort of fudge it a little bit with the words we use, and with the, and we still have a God out there, and of course, God is out there. God is everywhere. That's the whole first principle. But there's nothing lacking in me. If I need healing, I heal myself. If I need prayer, I pray from myself. That was Eric Butterworth's big thing, is you pray from God, not to God. You pray as an intention. You pray knowing and appreciating and loving the power you have to create. And I would agree with you that I don't think I'm as focused on that creative process as I was while I was here, because we did Harry Potter and we did a lot of things here that had to do with that process.
You're going with the flow now.
Sorry?
You just go with the flow.
I do. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about that in terms of ministry too. Many of you were here when I was here in June, and so I've been through a really bumpy time. And I have come to bless and appreciate every minute of it, all of it, because it was so rich. It has been so rich. It has given me so much in ego mind. I'm not. We were talking. I mean, Ellen and I have not stopped talking since Friday night, when we both got here. So she was asking how that's all going, and am I still anxious and am I still depressed? I'm not depressed. That has gone. Part of what I went through was Spirit saying, you need to clean house. You need to just focus on who you are. So do I get anxious? Ego mind gets anxious. Ego mind goes looking for things to get anxious about. You know, it'll make something up. It just needs anxiety. And that's fine. I don't have to go there. I am not powerless over ego mind. And so much of what we do, even in New Thought, is there's an underlying sense that ego mind has power over me, and I've got to fix it, or I've got to
overcome.
Got to rearrange the furniture or something. I've got to do something. So that's been the big change for me. Is just, I don't know, just simplifying, sort of.
I want to talk a little more about prayer, because the question arises, okay, I'm divine, am I praying to myself? Or if God is all there is, why pray at all? I just did chaplain training in my church, and they were saying, tell me again why I shouldn't say, dear God. I tried for a long time to convince people God is not an old man in the sky. God is not out there. You're not sending your prayers anywhere. God is within, and God is all there is. And I had no success with that. Because people want to pray to a higher power. And then I ran across Ken Wilber's Three Faces of God. I'm not a student of Ken Wilber, so don't ask me anything else. But I got this one thing. He said, in the religions of the world, God is described in three basic ways. God within, God as all there is, and God in relationship. Oh, okay. So I have no problem talking to angels, which has been another change since I left here.
Yeah, yes, it has. It certainly
yeah,
is.
so I talk to angels now. I mean, I think in whatever way you imagine the divine communicates with you is fine. And if it's principle one, if God is all there is, a lot more things are just fine.
Absolutely, and they're more than fine, they're true.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see Ellen become very, sort of woo-woo? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Some of you who were staff here remembered, but she was not, to put it mildly.
Hey, I had a psychic medium speak at my church this year.
Wow.
I would never have done that before.
And that's unity. I mean, that's the oneness. If you get your guidance from angels, then that's true for you. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. If you're, I don't want to say this in a judgmental way, if you're working with a God out there, that's where you are right now. That's your truth for right now. And that's absolutely fine. It's perfect. It's perfect. It may change. Certainly my perspective on truth doesn't change. Truth doesn't change. God is all there is. My ability to understand that, my ability to use it, to be it, to put down that fear-based, I'm not good enough, I'm not perfect enough, I haven't worked enough, need to take some more classes, I need to read some more books, put that down and out of the way. Thank you for sharing, but I think I'm going to go up the mountaintop and be the divine. I'm going to be the divine. So that prayer, as Butterworth said, it's praying as God. It's choosing to focus divine energy on a particular thing. That's prayer. There's no sense of need, there's nothing missing. God is all there is. There's nothing missing, there can't be. But I can focus some energy, I can focus that, Joe Goldsmith talks about that each of us is a parenthesis in eternity, and I really love that. We're not a complete circle because we're not blocked off from everything else, but we are a definition. We are a condensation, if you will, a coming together of divine energy. And our ability is to do that to others, for others, So, but as you said, there's no wrong way to pray.
Well,
boy, I set her up, didn't I?
I did. So I had a guy tell me, quit telling me I need to outgrow my concept of God. Because I kept referring to God out there as a childhood God. And I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to insult anybody. And Ed is right, wherever you are is okay. However, or and. We have talked a lot about how unity needs to know who it is and what it stands for and what it isn't. And the response I get on that is, oh no, we honor all paths and we accept all ideas because not to do so would be judgmental. If we set anything outside of unity, then we're not unity. And I get where they're coming from, but I think when people walk in the door, they're asking, so what do you teach here? What does unity stand for? And to say, oh, you can just believe anything you want, is not enough to keep them coming back.
I think that's absolutely true. The old structure and tradition of you go to church because you're supposed to go to church is gone. It's gone. With the millennials and beyond that, they don't have that tradition. They didn't grow up going to church, so the idea is foreign to them unless there's something in it for them, unless they're getting spiritually fed. So yes, I totally agree. Ellen and I have both been appointed to something called the theology team in Unity to look at our teachings and say, not are they wrong? Of course they're not wrong, but can we say it in a more current way? Can we be more up and precise about what we believe? And I think part of what we believe is the universality of paths. You know, that's part of our identification.
But you're the one who said years ago, pick a path and go deep with it, instead of dabbling in so many different paths. Well, this week I'm a Buddhist, and you know, then I'll be a Druid and worship trees. And
yeah, when I was in Oregon, there were a lot of New Thought centers there, not all Unity, and the ministers would get together about once every 3 months. And you're going to be shocked to hear that occasionally ministers talk about their congregations. But there were certain people, we could just chart them like on a map. You know, they would come to my church until they said something that made them angry, and then they'd go to Mary Morrissey's church, and then they'd go to religious science, and somebody would say something about commitment, and they'd be out that door and back to me. You know, it was just, you need to pick a path. Picking a path doesn't mean that all the other paths are wrong. It means this is my path. This is what I choose. This is the path I choose to take to the truth, which is the truth universally, you know? So yeah, I think that willingness to acknowledge other paths is a quality of unity that's very important. And I don't think that precludes having a specific path that is called unity.
We don't teach everything. And we certainly don't teach fundamentalist Christian.
No.
And most people in Unity are very quick to, no, we're not that. We don't teach Allah. We don't teach the Eightfold Path of Buddhism.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with those. And we're not judging them. We're just trying to define who we are. And even if we can do that, maybe update the language. And the language of oneness is tricky.
Very tricky.
English is set up for dualism. And all the religious tradition is set up for dualism. It's based on God out there. And so we're really having to reinvent not just how we do church, but how we talk about spirituality.
It's very difficult because simply speaking a word creates duality, doesn't it? You speak the word and there's this and there's not this. You know, this is this and there's not this. So you just really have to realize that you can't really do that, I think. You can't really totally express oneness. But you can be very careful about where you put your power. Jesus said, according to your faith, be it done to you. You know, if you believe that there's a God out there that has gifts, healing or abundance or something that is being withheld from me, if that's your language, that's going to be your reality. That's going to be your experience, you know. So I told you we have all kinds of things of Spirit Expressing. We have a woman who does hands-on healing, you know, and sometimes in the middle of one of our gatherings, she'll be led to do hands-on healing. So she just goes around while we keep talking, and she puts hands on everybody. It's, you know, it's not done anything for me, but people love it. So, you know. Who am I to say? You know, if it works for you, if you're getting something from it, if it's based in truth, if it's anything that says that there's a power outside you that you need to honor or fear or beseech, that's not truth. That's not truth. You can do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You will learn as you go that creates the very problem you're trying to solve, because in believing there's a problem, you're creating the problem, more of the problem. But we learn that as we go. And I appreciate every single step along the way, all of the craziness, all of the addiction, all of the 12 steps, all of the, everything, absolutely everything that brought me here. And I can't wait to see where it takes me from here, because I don't think I'm done. But it's really being very careful where you put your I am, where you put your faith, what you believe. I believe that I am complete and whole and infinitely abundant, and that with that abundance, I am going to deal with whatever is in front of me. I'm going to dissolve whatever appears to be lack. And, there are times when I can't even tell you where my income comes from, but it does. It does, and it's because I don't worry about it. It's because I don't count the dollars, I don't count the seats, I don't worry, how can I get more people in so that I can make more money? How can I serve the people that are here? How can I serve myself? What can I learn from this process? That's really, selfishly, that's the bottom line. How can these people guide me further?
And I have an order of service and a paycheck, which is a different model and also a way that the divine expresses. I mean, there's so many different ways to do, when I start to call it church, we're trying not to call it church so much. And you said when you were at the Hartford church, you changed it to center, and it changed the consciousness of the place.
It did.
To call it a spiritual center instead of a church.
Of course, 2 years later, they fired me, but...
They were.
And they went back to church. They did. They went back to church.
Oh, really?
Some of the people who had, I was attracting a lot of new people, but the core people who had been there when I came were not happy. And that's where the money is, frankly. And that's where the board said, okay, you're appealing to the wrong people. You're appealing to poor people. We need somebody who appeals to rich people. We talked earlier about that. You all know it. You've been through it. That where it's show me what's next. Show me what my next step will result in. Show me how that will work. And watch how gracefully I release the present. Watch how gracefully I move forward.
Once I know what's next.
Once I know it's there. And Spirit always says, no, let go, and then we'll see what's up. Just like, first let go. No. Let me see what's... No, first let go. So, okay, you're not going to have a paycheck anymore. No, excuse me. Excuse me, is there someone else I could talk to It'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. Okay. Because I've learned that if I hang on, I think all of the disease in the world comes from the friction of hanging on instead of letting go. If I hang on, I get sick. Somehow, somewhere, I get sick. And the universe says, okay, hang on. This is what you're creating for yourself by hanging on in fear. Yeah.
I'm so glad that's not my path so far. So far, I generally know what's next before I let go of something else. Although the shift in consciousness may come first, has already let go of it.
Yeah.
So how do you, I talked about angels, so how and where do you get guidance?
I have a very strange personal relationship with Jesus. I do. I don't talk about it much because I don't think everybody should have it. I don't think it's the only way. I don't think he's the only answer. But he is my guide with the Bible. He is my guide with, I can't say he writes me letters or gives me specific advice, but he's there. And a lot of the time, and I mean this literally, a lot of the time, he's laughing his head off. He is. He just thinks I'm cute. Isn't that cute? Look at him. And that's where I get my guidance. And the other place I get my guidance is from me. And the one thing I talked when I was here before about Byron Katie, my experience with Byron Katie last year, which was transformative, which really helped me know when I'm in ego mind and when I'm in spirit, and recognize that I can be in spirit whenever I choose to be. I don't have to earn the right. I don't have to, get a certificate or be ordained. It's the truth of who I am. I can be there anytime. And there's nothing missing when I'm there. What I see is maybe really strange, but it's true. It is true.
And so even though I still use the term spiritual growth, that sounds like there's somewhere you need to go.
Right.
What's a better word? Expansion?
Again, it's words. I work with this a lot. You can't say, I don't even like to, I used to work a lot with the path. You're on a spiritual path. Well, yeah, but you're not going anywhere. You're there, and you're not becoming anything more. You're everything there is. So it's sort of spiritual awareness, more spiritual awakening. How does that work?
Awakening's good.
Yeah,
it's because it's an inner thing.
Yeah. I used to say when I was teaching Course in Miracles, that one cell in my body can suddenly become aware of our divinity, but it can't go off and change life. You have to work with, you have to work with growing that and with deepening your understanding of who you are, and be willing to let go of some traditions. I was dealing a lot with the word hope, because hope suggests there's something missing. Hope seems dualistic to me. Faith isn't dualistic. Love isn't dualistic. Hope, I know Paul said it, but that was 2,000 years ago. We could maybe look at it differently. And that's a lot of my life right now. It's just taking a word like hope and thinking, how does that fit into the first principle? How does that work within terms of the first principle?
Hope connotes there's something better than this.
Yeah.
Okay, but if God is all there is and we're already divine and there's nowhere to go on a path, how do we get better? Don't we still want to be more?
But the more you recognize and trust and release your spiritual truth, the better you'll be.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to fix the ego mind in order to find spirit. You have to find spirit in order to let that love and that light into your ego mind. And it'll never be perfect, because if it were perfect, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here at all. There's always going to be some duality to deal with. But knowing that you can deal with it, knowing that you have the power, that nothing, absolutely nothing, has power over you. Absolutely nothing, unless you choose to give it. It's very powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
When I talked about unapologetic divinity, one of the points I kept trying to make is that living in divine consciousness, coming from your God self, is not about trying to be nice. It's not about behavior. And I grew up in a church where once you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, you would behave in certain ways. And believe me, God was watching. And so your behavior was very important. And it served the purpose of kind of knowing what you're shooting for and when you're off the path. And so what I hear you saying is, I'm already divine, I'm already God. And does that make anything okay?
No, it doesn't make anything okay. We're living a life right now that is filled with, it's like a laboratory, isn't it? It's filled with opportunities to be judgmental, to be fearful, to despair over what's happening. Are we ever going to decide maybe there are a few too many guns out there?
Or too many crazy people.
And too many crazy people. So how do you do that? How do you deal with something like Charleston? How do you deal with that? Well, you come to your center and you see the truth. You see the light. It sounds absurd to say you find something to appreciate, but you do. You appreciate the response, the love, the infinite love that responded from that event. Once you release the idea that death is some sort of punishment or some sort of end of everything, it's just a movement to another phase, you're able to see it differently. And it's not always comfortable, it's not always popular, because people are taking sides and people are seeing it from a dualistic perception. You know, how do we stop these people and I mean, God help us with this election campaign, which started way too early, if you ask me. And I mean, I like the Canadian system. They announce an election and they have it about 6 weeks later. You know, I like it. But you know, many, many opportunities to say, I'm going to appreciate. I'm going to appreciate.
And in Charleston, you all saw where the families came and forgave him to his face. I'm usually very skeptical of instant forgiveness, but hearing their voices, I believe they were coming from the divine within, and it shifted this country. And the Confederate flags started coming down, and it sparked a dialogue. So
what does forgive mean in that? What in fact did they do? What were they?
I think it was about oneness. I think they were acknowledging our mutual humanity and divinity in forgiving him.
I think that's absolutely it. You know, it's not that I don't care that you killed my loved one. It's that I understand that I still know you as a spiritual being. And choices have consequences, so you're going to have consequences for the choices you made. That doesn't mean I have to hate you or judge you or make you different than me, because that just creates more problems for me.
Robert is up there holding a big red light.
Oh.
That I think means...
Stop?
Yeah.
Stop and get off the stage?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to stop and get off the stage.
Thank you so much for inviting us. This is
It's been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.